In this video, we're going to cover the installation process of the AC44 digital controller kit. We'll go over the tools needed and then time required and some step-by-step instructions to install the kit. Just to give you a little bit of background about this kit, in the past, mechanical thermostats used in the AC44s have been a little difficult to set as far as temperature wise, and they've had some reliability issues. So Autochlor developed this digital controller kit that utilizes the digital controllers and the thermistors that are used in the UHTs and the A6 dish machine to control the heaters. The controller kit will mount inside the existing power box and can be installed with the minimum modifications and disassembly. It offers a couple of following advantages. The digital controller kit can be used with either the mercury relays or the replacement heater relay kits. When the ADS digital controller kit is used, it eliminates the need for the 5-second delay timers. Once the thermistors are installed, there's no requirement to remove the heater box to adjust the thermostats, and the temperatures can be monitored and set from the power box. The digital controllers are fully adjustable and can be set to any temperature from 120 to 190. If you do plan on installing this kit, you do want to plan out the time required to install this. I've done 3 kits now, and it's taken anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to completely do the install. So if you're going to do this in the field, you're going to want to make sure you set those time requirements for yourself and for the customer, just so they know. So with any install that you do, you want to make sure that you got your proper tools ready at the go before you get started. Mostly hand tools. It's going to be fairly simple requirements. You will need a drill bit, and then you also need some terminals to complete this installation. Here's what's included in the kit. Basically your 2 controllers, wiring, and your 2 thermistors. If you do need to replace your contactors for some reason, Autochlor does have these 2 kits available here, the 30 amp and 60 amp contactors. When you're ready to start working on the machine, you definitely want to drain your water, disconnect your power. You're going to remove the 2 aprons and the heater control box cover. And as you can see here on this machine, we've got the newer style contactors with the delay relays. For the purpose of this video, we're going to start on the wash side, and we're going to remove the thermostat cover, and then we're also going to move over to the rinse side and take off that cover. After we take the cover off, we now have access to the wash thermostat, and we can start the process of disconnecting the wash thermostat from the machine. Disconnect the 2 orange wires coming from the heater control box to the thermostat. Now you can just get an adjustable wrench in here and remove that thermostat. After you have removed the thermostat, go ahead and replace it with the thermistor that comes in the kit. Just make sure you put Teflon tape or some type of thread material on the threading. Now that you have done the wash thermistor, go ahead and repeat the same process for the rinse tank. Now that both thermistors have been installed, we're going to go back to the wash heater box and work on pulling the probe wires to that heater box. These are the orange wires we're going to be connecting to with those probe wires to pull them through. Here are the probe wires. These are connected to the two controllers. They're going to be of this beige color. Remember, orange is always going to be the wash side and yellow is always going to be the rinse side. So that's how you can know the difference between which wires you need to pull. So we're going to be working on the probe wire that's connected to the wash side, and so we need to get that probe wire over to the heater control box. So we're going to go through that conduit, come up through the bottom of the box, and eventually the probe wires are going to connect to this thermistor. So here's probably the biggest problem I ran into during this installation, was trying to pull that probe wire through that conduit. The conduit that has the wash heater wires in it is pretty maxed out. So my process was to remove the conduit in order to get that probe wire through. It's a pretty straightforward process. And removing the conduit, basically at the heater control box, just remove the nuts that hold the conduit in place. I did have to remove all the wires connecting the wires to the heating element. So this gave me better access to that whole conduit by just pulling off these wires. There's that orange wire that I need to get that probe tied into so I can pull it through. But as you can see, that conduit is pretty maxed out with all those big wires in there. There's the probe wire. I need to hook it up to the orange to pull that through. Basically, you can just put some electrical tape on it. And again, make sure you're pulling the right one. It's going to be coming from the controller that has also the orange control wires on it. Orange is always wash. So now I have it rigged up to pull the probe wires through. But again, as you can see, during this process, I was not able to pull these wires through. It was just too much. So I ended up taking off the conduit completely off the machine, undoing the electrical wires that were on the wash heater contactor, and just completely taking out the conduit from the machine itself. Now that I have the conduit completely removed, made it a little bit easier to get that probe wire through, because now I could straighten out that conduit and I wouldn't have to worry about any sharp bends, and I was able to manipulate the wire a lot easier. So here's the process of me getting that probe wire through the conduit. Again, it was much easier doing it by pulling this conduit outside the machine, and so I can straighten up the wires. But you know, basically you've got to use some electrical tape, tie in the probe to that orange wire, and then you're just going to pull that orange wire so that the probe wire comes out the other side of that conduit. So as you can see, it still took a little bit of work to get that probe wire through the conduit. Like I said, it's just really tight working conditions there. So one thing I did have to do was to take the probe wire off of the digital controller. And so here I'll show you that there's little clips that are on the side of the digital controller right there. If you just press those in, you'll be able to get the digital controller off the holder, and you can undo those wires. It's pretty straightforward. But after I've got the probe wire through the conduit, now basically put everything back together. Like I said, this was probably the most labor intensive part of the whole install. Otherwise, it went pretty well. But this part here took the most time for sure. So again, you're just going to go back through and reconnect all your heating element wires. Make sure they're good and tight. Now we're going to go over to the rinse side, now that we've gotten the wash probe taken care of, and kind of do the same thing. We're going to disconnect all our yellow wires, make sure they're free, cut the fittings off of them, because we're going to end up pulling that wire through the conduit. And those connections came off those delay relays, which we're not going to need anymore. So those fittings don't really matter. And then again, just like we did with the wash side, we're going to take our probe wire that's connected to the rinse digital controller, and we're going to attach it to that yellow wire. Now there's, again, yellow is rinse. There's our probe wire. Just taped it up with some electrical tape. Now this conduit has a lot more room to pull wires through, because those rinse wires are much smaller. So this was actually much easier. I did not have to undo any conduit to get that probe wire through. I just went ahead and make sure all my wires are reconnected. Now we're going to move on to actually installing the digital controller to the heater control box. So we do have to drill a mounting hole for it. You do have a template included in the kit. You gotta remove that control box from the machine. There are two 7/16 nuts that hold that control box to the machine. We're going to measure over 5 inches from the left hand side towards the middle of the control box. Make a mark in there so you know where it is. And then you're going to measure about 2 inches in towards the middle of the box. And that's where we're going to put our mounting hole. Now you can just drill your mounting hole and then go ahead and mount the controller displays in that spot. You will have to provide your own 7/16 nut here. It is not included in the kit, so something to be prepared for. Now that you've got the digital controllers mounted, you can go ahead and remount that heater control box. After the heater control box is all taken care of, as far as mounting wise, we can go ahead and start working on the rest of the wiring. From the factory, all the wires are going to be all zip tied together, so we do want to take off those zip ties so we can break up the wiring, so make it easier to work with. After you got the zip ties all removed from the wiring harness, you do want to kind of start organizing your wires by color. Just remember, all of your white wires are going to be neutral. Orange wires are going to run your wash side, and then your yellow wires, of course, are going to run your rinse side. Since this kit does not need them anymore, we can go ahead and start removing the delay relays. We're going to start on the wash side first and connect that system. Then we'll do pretty much the same thing on the rinse side in a few minutes. After the delay relay has been removed, we can go ahead and remove the old wires connecting the contactor coil. So A1 and A2 is going to be a white, neutral, and an orange. We can remove those from the contactor. On the 60 amp, they're both on top. Now here I did remove the heater wash element wires from that contactor just to make it easier to get to those coil contacts. So in the kit you're going to have the orange with the black stripe, and you're going to attach that to A2 on the coil of your contactor. And then you're going to find the neutral that has that forked style terminal, and doesn't matter which one, they all go to a single neutral. We're going to take that neutral and attach it to A1 on that contactor. So now our contactor has all the signal wires attached. You will have a second orange and black wire that's got a female terminal on it. That's going to go to your indicator light. So you're going to need to make a terminal on the other side of the indicator light where the black wire is, and then just hook those two together. Next we can prep the signal wire coming from the float switch of the machine. Going to need to cut all the wires off of it that previously went to the delay relay. You're going to need to add a female terminal to that signal wire. And then after you have attached that terminal to the incoming signal wire, you're going to grab the last orange wire coming from that controller, and you're going to connect those two together. So it's going to be just a plain orange wire to an orange wire. Now your wash side is all hooked up. We're going to basically do the same thing on the rinse side. Start off by removing the delay relay and all the wires that connect to it. So we're basically going to repeat what we did on the wash side with the rinse. We're going to find the neutral from the controller that's got the forked terminal, and we're going to put that on A1 of your contactor. Going to find the yellow with black stripe. And again, it's going to have that forked contactor terminal on it, and that's going to go on A2. Now on the 30 amp contactor, the A2 connection is at the bottom. Now we can prepare that yellow signal wire coming from the machine itself. We basically are going to cut off all those terminals that used to go to the delay relay. We don't need those any longer. We strip that wire, and we're going to put a female terminal on that signal wire. And that's the signal wire that's coming from the float switch of the machine itself. And going to look in your wiring harness. You're going to grab the yellow wire that's got the actual male terminal already attached to it. That's coming from that controller, and we're going to put those together. Now we can also go ahead and hook up the indicator light. So it's got the yellow with the black stripe, and we can cut the other side of that light wire. I'm going to put a male terminal on that wire, and now we can connect that orange with the black stripe directly to the indicator light. Now we do need to take care of the neutral side of those indicator lights. So on the indicator lights themselves, they're probably going to have some type of terminals attached to the factory supplied black wires. So we're going to remove those terminals. We're going to look through our wiring harness here, and we're going to look for the remaining white wires. There should be 2 left white wires with female terminals on them. So we're going to get a male terminal, and we're going to connect it to that remaining wire that's on the indicator light. So now you can just take one of those neutrals and connect it back to the light, and we're going to do the same thing on the rinse side. You're going to need to prepare that wire, again probably coming from the factory itself. It's probably going to have a terminal on it. So again, we're putting on another terminal, male. And then you're going to find the last remaining wire coming from those control units. It's going to be a white wire, female terminal. You're going to connect those together. So at this point, all your contactors and your lights are all connected. The final part of the wiring is we're going to pull the black with white stripe and white wire from this control box all the way up to the top of the machine. These are going to be the longest wires that are in this kit. So you're going to look for that neutral wire coming from the top control box. Cut off any extra wiring that was attached to it. Grab your black with white stripe and your white wire coming from your new kit, and you're going to tie those together. So like I said, we want to pull that neutral wire back through the machine up to the top so we can get these main control wires up to the top of the machine. Now here you see we have gotten the black with white stripe, and the neutral wire has been pulled up from the bottom. Now you're just going to take your black with white wire, you're going to connect it to the top part of the 120 terminal, and you're going to take your white wire and you're going to just attach it anywhere on that neutral bar. So that pretty much wraps it up with the installation of the digital control kit. Now you should be able to turn the machine back on, refill it with water, and see that your displays light up. I think you will find that if you follow the instructions that are included in the kit, most of it should go pretty straightforward. You do get a wiring diagram included, and you'll see it's not really all that complicated. Like I said, the biggest obstacle that I came across was just trying to get that probe wire through that heater conduit just because so much real estate was being taken up just by the heater element wires themselves, so that needed just a little bit extra work in that. But otherwise, all the other fishing of the wires, moving them, pulling them through, was pretty straightforward. And here there are the instructions on adjusting the temperature of these two controllers. What's different is between the UHT and the A6, those controllers are locked in place from the factory and we can't really adjust those. To adjust the temperature on these controllers, you basically just hit the set button once, and then you can hit the up or down buttons and then hit set again, and that will set your temperature. It's great that it's pretty straightforward, instantaneous, and that just by you pulling that cover off your control box now, you can see what your temperatures are set at and make any adjustments fairly quick as compared to the old thermostats. I hope that this video is helpful for you if you decide to use these and install these digital controllers along with the instructions that come along in the kit. Thank you.